So parts wise, this is a very simple issue. We only get the 2 parts today. We have the ramp motor, which is this part here. I'm going to leave it in the box until we need it. We will need it in this issue. And we have these little, we only need 1 of these, but they've supplied 2 of them. So to assemble the actuators, they have actually gone into great detail with the instructions, which make them seem a little bit harder, but they're actually quite simple. So we've got pretty much 4 of every part, and in each instance we need all the short ones together and all the long ones. So we take these little bits, we can see there we've got one is longer than the other, so we'll do short, long. So this is a short one, so this will be the second short one, this will be the second long one, and where we see there, these are both the same. So this is shorter, so that will go with that. And then lastly, you've got the metal pins. You can see there's 2 short, 2 long. So 1 long, 1 long, 2 short and 2 long. And we'll just leave the parts ready, and then all we need to do is there's an oval hole that always goes to the top, and it actually lays them out in this way. So you've got the pin at the top, you've got the next piece is going in a Z, and then this is going that way. You place the pin in the top like so, and then you place, there's a small hole in the top there, and that pushes into the pin. And it does say that it's a tight fit, you may feel the need to glue them, and that's fine. And the way you know you've got this in correctly is that this will move up and down. You should be able to move in a straight line. So I'll get those finished. Okay, so we're going to do a very fiddly stage next, and we're going to fit the pivots. So the first thing we need to do is cut off the 4 actual pivots from the sprue, and I'm actually not going to trim these. These are quite small, and I don't think we have too much to worry about. So I'll just trim those. Trim. Just make sure you don't lose them once you cut them off. Try to hold them down so that they don't fly off, and then just trim off any excess. I'm going to use a file. So I have had problems with these before where I've as you know in a previous video, I had a small bit fly off. Thankfully I managed to find it, but obviously you want to not lose it in the first place. So I'm just trimming these with a knife. It's just how I'm finding it quite convenient today. I did suggest using a file. So what I will say is just trim in your own favourite way. I'm using a sharp blade. If you are if you're a miner, you know, get the help of somebody responsible. Right, so what we're going to do now, these are very small parts. These are the little pivots, and I don't want to throw them on the table. I want to be very careful with them. So what we need to do, these pivots are going to go on like that. Nope, not like that. Like that. So as you can't see because my nails are in the way, there we go. It actually creates one piece, and it's going to pivot on there. So what we're going to do is on this side, we're going to take this, and it does suggest doing it a different way. I'm going to do things my own way, and already I've just lost one. Right, so I'm going to carry on with another one. I have a, here we are, found it. So it actually suggests sticking this to masking tape, which is actually a really good idea. But in this case, I'm going to see if I can use my tweezers. What I want to do is push this from this side, from the outside in towards the middle, and that's actually gone in quite nice. So then we'll just pop the pivot onto there, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a tight fit, because if it's not a tight fit, we're going to have to figure out some way to make it a tight fit. Okay, there we go, that's gone in very nicely with a pair of tweezers. So that's one of the hinges made. See if I can bring that up a little bit closer. So we've popped one of the pivots in from this side, we've pushed it in and held it, we've popped the pivot on, and then we've just pushed it down with something. In this case I've used tweezers. So I'm going to get on with the other three. Okay, so the next stage, or next step, we're going to fit the, we're going to attach the ramp, and the way that this is going to be attached is it's going to go onto there, and that will be placed on with 8 screws. This will be the silver screws that are used for attaching the hull, and there are 8 holes there, and they are the fixing points. Okay, so next we want to take the ramp pivot off the sprue. Should be the last piece left on the sprue, and I just want to make sure that's a little bit tidy. I'll use a file on this one because it's quite large. There we go. Now I have said in the past that you use these files in one direction, so I don't know if you spotted my mistake there. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to test fit this. It needs to eventually go over this part of the motor. Now the way you know it's this bit is you've got this little wire there that's screwed in, and it'll just be there, and it's got like a little stopper switch. So I can see that that's going to go in, and it doesn't look like it needs to go any particular way. So what we need to do is take one of these pivot pins, and we only need the one, although we've been given 2, and I'm going to keep that one safe because if I should lose this, I've then got a spare, which is very generous of them, I think. So I need to somehow push this pin. Now there is a larger end. There is not a larger end. I thought there was going to be a larger end, so it doesn't matter which way round this pin goes. So I'm going to grip it with my tweezers. This is going to be a little bit fiddly. I'm going to hold that over there, and we're going to try and feed it through. Let's do a test fit. I am really struggling with this. It's because the parts are quite small. There we go, that's going to be the easiest way. So feed it part the way through, and you got a fish, and then you need to make sure it comes out the other end. So it's going to take quite a lot of pushing, perhaps a little bit of jiggling too. So find something to push that in with, and there we go. Right, so what we can also do, if we're very careful, we can apply just a tiny bit of glue on there just to stop that pin from coming out. And it does actually say to apply a little bit of glue on the underside of the pin. Let me just double check my instructions. Yeah. So we can pop a little bit of glue there and there, as long as we don't get any on the inside. So if you're not 100% confident with glue, don't do this. There we go, tiny bit there and a tiny bit there. I'm using super glue gel, and then that way it's not gonna run. And you can see there that it still has free movement, like so. And also because of the glue, that's not gonna, that pivot is not gonna, or that pin, sorry, is not gonna fall out. It is a little bit stiff. That's because it is pretty much an exact match, but so long as that moves backwards and forwards, that should be fine. Okay, so we to finish off this section, we need to bring in the ramp. Now this is very difficult to spot until you know what you're looking for. What we need to do, we have four holes there. We need to attach that to the ramp. Now, if you, obviously we've just done this piece here, so we know that's going to go somewhere around there. So we just pop that in. See that bit there goes into that hole there, and then you can figure out where the holes are from there. So you now see you've got 2 holes there, and you've got 2 holes there. So what you then want to do is screw this down using black screws, which I've already got ready. The black screws are always anything to do with the framework. Usually anything that attaches to the frame will be black screws. And there's only one kind of black screw, so what I would recommend here is that we will attach it with the easiest points we can find in the corners. It's just getting the first one in that's always the problem. And then once you've got that first one in, it tends to not be able to run away so much. Now this screw doesn't seem to want to go into the frame. There we go, bit of persuasion needed. So I'm then going to go with this. Normally I would go the opposite corner, but the opposite corner is here. It's a little bit tricky with that wire. So just to get it attached to the ramp, to the frame, I'm just going to go somewhere else, anywhere else. Okay, and these screws are tricky to get in. Okay, I'm going to back off on that one. I think I've gone a little bit too tight, and I've actually started to crack the plastic. So this is the problem with screwing in too tight. You need to just find your point where it's tight. It doesn't need to be in fully, as you can see there, just so long as it's in, holding it so it doesn't move. Okay, and this is becoming a problem. This is normally I've not had any problems with this, but these screws don't seem to want to quite line up. There we go, that's better. So see, that's firm, so I don't need to go any further on that screw. So we'll just pop this last one in, which is going to be a bit of an issue. In fact, I'm going to switch screwdrivers, and the reason for that, oops, yeah, R2's just chirped in there, So I'm just going to go in actually with the R2-D2 screwdriver. Maybe that's what R2-D2 was trying to tell me. Now this one isn't as magnetized as much, I've noticed. In fact, it's not magnetized at all. So I'll find an alternative. I'm just trying to find a screwdriver with a long thin shaft. Oops. This is quite a difficult place to reach. If I don't get it in, I could actually live with the 3 screws, but I would rather get the 4 in, because the magazine says to put 4 in, so wherever possible it will have all 4. Right. Let's use this one now that I've got that one in. There we go. So we just want this. Yeah, that's not going anywhere, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so the last thing I want to do before we move on to the next stage, at the point where we were told to put glue onto the pivot, I actually misread that. I haven't done anything wrong, because I have made sure that pivot's going to stay on. However, what it actually asked us to do, and I wasn't sure at the time, it wants us to put glue on the underside here, and then obviously as we put the motor onto there, it will stick onto the ramp. Now the problem with that is that once we stick that, we're not going to be able to move this ramp open manually. We have absolutely no way of testing this. It does say in the magazine not to play with the motor, not to plug it in or anything, because it can damage it. You'll often see me testing things on the stream. I can connect this up. This is the LED lights. In fact, I have already connected those up and made sure they work. I do like to make sure things work as soon as possible. Obviously, if this doesn't work, because there's a fault with the parts, then obviously I'd need to ring Model Space and say, can you replace this part? But once it's all attached, the ramp's going to have to come off and everything. So it is going to be it's a little bit of a negativity bit for me, but this is going to be difficult because it's harder to reach. I should have done it, but I wasn't 100% sure, which is why I didn't do it. So I'm just going to pop the glue on now, and I would recommend gel glue, as I always do. And don't want too much. This is difficult because of the position. And then what I'll do is I'll just watch this as I pop it in. Perfect. And I'll just push that down for a few seconds, and then that ramp will then become permanently up until we connect the motor, and I don't know when we will connect the motor. So there we go, there's our permanent fixing. So obviously if I pull that now, it will either break at the point of gluing, or it will pull on that motor and it could damage it. You can actually see the motor mechanism there. Okay, so let's move on to the next stage then. Okay, so what we're going to do on the last section of this stage, we're going to fit these hydraulic actuators. First of all, we're going to glue the bottom, and we're going to stick it onto, you'll see 4 sets of holes there, there, and there. Now, the 2 short ones go at the back, because if you imagine the arc of a circle, that bit there isn't as much as that bit. So you've got the 2 long ones will go on the outside, and what I'll do is I'll do one, and then I'll do the rest of them as speeded up view. Now, the way I'm going to position these, looking at the magazine, if you draw a straight line down, I'll try and get this out a bit, so you see where the main straight line bit is, and then you've got this little bit poking out. You want it poking out towards the outside, so they'll all go the same way. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. You can dab a drop of glue into there and then place this onto it. The pivot's quite nice and it'll go straight in. Or alternatively, you can put the glue onto this, but if you miss with this, you'll end up sticking it to something else. So the method I'm actually going to go for is to drop the glue into the ramp and then stick that on. Then, well, let's do the glue first. Keep it simple, keep it one stage at a time. So, small dab of glue. The more glue you put in, the longer it's going to take to dry, and the uglier the mess. You know, I can't, there we go. I couldn't seem to get the glue in. So we want the sticky out part at the front, at the back, sorry. And there we go, that's him. And I may actually have glued that. Oh, no, that's perfect. There we go. Right, so to finish this off, we want to then screw the, let's look at this one. We then want to screw, you see where we've got two holes there, we actually want to screw that to the framework. So wait for the glue to dry. I would do these one at a time, to be honest with you, because it's going to be less fiddly. And we're going to be using the black screws, which are the frame fixing screws, and I've got 8 of them ready. So find the first one. It's going to be slightly fiddly, but once the first one has gone in, it should be simple. And remember, we don't need to put these on too tight, we just need to fix them. There we go, there's one in. You can probably see how fiddly this is. Right, there we go. So that's in tight, and that one's in tight. And I suggest that these are more of a guide than anything else, so that as the ramp goes up and down, that will move smoothly. So let me just check. Yeah, that is going to still. I was worried I glued it there. Okay, so I'm going to get on with the other 3, which I'll speed up.